to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome, neighbors, to Vecinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
Welcome to Vecinos. Our program this morning is going to cover a new book, a book by a gentleman who used to work for the San Diego Union Tribune. The name of the book is The Colors of Eden, and it's written by Fernando Romero. I didn't find this book. This book came to me. Augie Barreño told me, you have to read this book. And the minute I read it, I knew I had to have a guest on the show, or have the writer on the show. Augie, tell me a little bit about why you thought this book was so important.
Well, it for two reasons. The primary one is that it's a story about Mexican families and the dysfunction, but also the hope that things get better. The other part is that it's set in a region, both in Mexico City, but also in the San Diego Tijuana region. And it's a unique area, even in the United States and in Mexico, because a lot of things are created in the area. I regard the book and Fernando as probably one of the top three communicators from the region. The first one, in my estimation, was in 1954. There was a gentleman called Manuel Acosta Mesa. He was an editor of a newspaper, El Imparcial, and he was killed because of allegedly doing a story about then the sitting governor's family about prostitution. So Manuel Acosta Mesa was a stringer for the San Diego Union, but was a major communicator in the San Diego Tijuana region. The second one is another man who utilized the television as the means, and that's Juan Luis Curiel with his Juan Luis Presentas, because what he did, he began to market San Diego products in Tijuana and began to develop an outlet through his show, which was called Juan Luis Presenta, for rock and roll, for youngsters, and it was a new concentration. And the third one is Fernando, because of what he had been in terms of a reporter, but also the issues that his book addressed, the poignancy of it, the power of it. It reminded me of a movie that came out of the golden era of Mexican cinema. It's called Tienda de la Esquina. It was done in 1951, where all the major Mexican actors were in it. But it's basically a story about a neighborhood, people responding to challenges, betrayal, hurt, dysfunction, love, lack of love, and then opportunity. That out of the crisis, people can respond, and there's hope, and their lives become something better. But I take Fernando's book and put it at that level, and I've made it a mission, because I'm a friend of his and I've known him for years, to let people know about it, that this is a brilliant story that at a minimum should be a novella, if not a movie. But it speaks to the dark side of Mexican families and the structure, how we get much joy out of it, but we also are very quiet about the dysfunction and the hurt we do to each other. But at the same time, at the end of the tunnel, there's that hope. And Fernando's book, both in his professional work and his family life with his wife Denise and son, there's always hope. From that darkness came this ray of hope, and that's what really grabs you by. That's why I want people, and I'm glad you picked it up, to know that this is a San Diego Tijuana story. It's uniquely border related, and it's one of the voices that we have to recognize in this whole process. And that's basically, I'm a big fan, but I know Fernando, but I also know what he represents and what the family structure that he talks about, how important that is to understand that as we move forward as a society, and both on the Mexican side and in San Diego.
And Fernando, I'm going to start this interview a little different than the other interviews. Usually I start with your childhood, but I'd like to start with your professional life, and we'll work our way back to your childhood. What did you do as a professional? And I know people will know the minute you start talking.
Yes, I graduated from San Diego State in 1983 in journalism. It's easy to say. It was very difficult to accomplish because of where I had come from. In any case, I was lucky enough to sign up with the Los Angeles Times as an intern back in '83, and I was most delighted with the idea that I had graduated and immediately started working for the LA Times. It was, for me, the accomplishment of a lifetime. If you knew where I came from, then you would understand. I covered Tijuana first for the LA Times and later for the San Diego Tribune. How this happened was kind of interesting because during my internship at the LA Times, I wrote a story about TJ, and the next day the Tribune had it published, the same story without my name, and one reporter for the LA Times came to me and he said, this is the same story that we published yesterday, but with your name on it. What happened here? And I told the editor, and the editor called the the San Diego Tribune, and one of the editors for the Tribune said, we did it on purpose because we wanted to offer Fernando a job. We know that he's working for you as an intern, but we offered him a job. And the editor was very happy. In any case, I ended up working for the Tribune, and of all places, Tijuana.
And what were some of the major stories you covered or that you wrote? Do you remember that story that the San Diego Union borrowed from the Times? Do you remember what it was about?
I think it had to do with something that happened really in Tecate. Some children had been abused, and one of the abusers was from San Diego, and we had paid attention from the beginning to the story from the beginning, and it turns out that the orphanage burned down, but they had me. The LA Times had me, and they sent me right away, and we had the story. And at the time, the Tribune, which had a bureau in Tijuana, didn't have anyone to cover because the reporter was on vacation, and there was no one else they could send, so they kind of had to take my story.
You were it.
Yes.
Tell us another story or two that you covered for between the two borders, because that really was unheard of, that the stories would be back and forth, like there wasn't a border.
Yes. It was interesting that I had to cover some stuff that was only mine because of the investigations that me and some of those some of the people I trusted implicitly, who were friends of mine and who were reporters out there, would tell me about, and then I would go and investigate and find out that indeed something was going on. For example, there was a story about Comandante. He was the Comandante of the state police. And it turns out that the Comandante was also the demandante. That is, he was demanding money from certain parts of government, not to uncover or reveal their troubles with some money that was lost, and that's in quotes, lost. And of course, when it happened, it caught everyone, including the union. At that time, there were two newspapers, San Diego newspapers, the Union and the Tribune. Both of them, of course, owned by the same family. But in any case, that was one of the stories that I'm most proud of. And then, of course, let me tell you about this very...
I'm going to ask you to hold that thought right now, because we're going to commercial and we will come back and talk about it in a minute. Thank you so much.
A podcast or radio show on WS Radio is a great way to create content marketing. Turn prospects into customers into raving fans. Contact Wade at WSRadio.com or call 866-WS-RADIO.
The richness of your life is reflected in the shimmering elegance found at Diolun Design. One-of-a-kind jewelry and pieces from Cynthia Dillon in silver and gold help to express your unique personality. The flowing designs of her creations will empower the way you move throughout your day. Join us online at DIOLUNdesigns.com.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on Vin Village Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. VinVillage connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
One person has the power to change the world, impact millions of lives, and leave a legacy for lifetimes to come. That person is you. In the New York Times bestseller, What is Your What?, Steve Olsher, award-winning author and founder of the Reinvention Workshop, reveals his proven process that has helped thousands of men and women discover, share, and monetize the one thing they were born to do. Grab your free copy now at www.whatisyourwhat.com/free. That's www.whatisyourwhat.com/free.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
Has your business been appified? Are you tired of doing marketing that doesn't deliver results? Mobile apps build loyalty and quality retention. Your app from UPG Mobile puts your business on their mind and at their fingertips. UPG Mobile will give you a custom app highlighting how you are unique, targeting your message, and improving your open rates. Amplify your business and amplify your presence with your customers at upgmobilemarketinggroup.com.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome, neighbors, to Vecinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
Welcome back to Vecinos. When we went to commercial, we were talking to Fernando Romero, and he was telling us about some of the stories he did for the San Diego Union. He would like to share another story with us.
Just one small just insignificant correction, and that would be the San Diego Tribune.
Oh, okay, San Diego Tribune. Now it's one, but yes, in those days it was two newspapers.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I remember well when someone came to me and said, Fernando, there's a story developing in Tijuana, and we do not know if it's true or not. Could you find out? And I called someone I knew in TJ, and she told me Gato Felix, a very prominent columnist, journalist in Tijuana, was killed. And I was stunned because Gato Felix was a good friend, someone I visited once in a while to talk about the current events at DJ and all that. And I was in the middle of something that I was going to do with another journalist, a good friend. His name is Chet Barfield, but I had to leave everything and go down to Tijuana. And I found out that Gato had been killed in his car as he was going to work at the Etzeta newspaper, the most prominent and well-written weekly in Baja. I was astonished to find out that the suspicion immediately fell on someone who was not at all involved with, drugs or anything else in Tijuana but the racetrack. He was the new owner of the racetrack. His name was Jorge Hank Ron. And I found out that it was two of his employees who were suspected of doing the dirty deed. It took me approximately 3 weeks or a month, but I finally got the truth, and that was that not only were they involved, but I suspected, and I said so in my stories, that Jorge Hank Ron was also involved. And I explained to the people why. That is, Gato had, for the past 3 or 4 weeks of his life, had gone into this attack mode in which he said, even though Jorge Ron is my friend, I suspect that he is consuming drugs, and he's also perhaps involved in the drug trade. I really didn't delve that much on that subject, but I knew the fact that 2 of his employees were involved, and that those employees were not at all. There was no reason for them to kill Gato, but there was a reason for Jorge Juan to have Gato killed. In any case, that was one of the stories that I'm most proud of.
You've done a lot, and it seems to me like you must have had just the perfect life. I mean, all these you've accomplished in all of this. Let's talk about your childhood. I have to tell you, when I read the book, there was times I cried. There was times I was angry. Tell us about your childhood and how you ended up living in Mexico City.
I had actually, until about when I was 9 years old, I had a wonderful childhood. I had some friends who became Jimmy's army because Jimmy was the most, his family was wealthy, and he was the richest among us. And we had a wonderful time, and I had a wonderful time at home with my mom and my little sister Judith, and it was just fantasy land. And then my parents began to fight. There were petty jealousies, but ultimately, my father, who was a broadcaster, a radio man, and a well-respected one in town, but who loved the ladies, could not help but do what he had done for a while, and that was the way that both of them came into the situation where they could not be together any longer. To me, that was absolutely unbelievable, because I thought that I was going to live like that forever. And when my mom and dad separated, suddenly our lives, and I'm talking about the lives of my mother, my sister, and me, changed completely. Ultimately, we ended up living with my grandma, and I thought, well, it might be bad that I'm not living with my father, but this is not bad. But my father, who did not want my mother to have me, decided to take me to Mexico City and leave me with an aunt. And that's the beginning of this story.
Tell us about your aunt and what happened when you reached Mexico City, because he left you there and left.
That's right. He promised her that he would be sending money regularly, which he didn't. Another thing was that my aunt had gone through some really bad changes in her life, in her own life, and had become quite bitter with her life. And she had 5-6 mouths to feed. And when my father took me to her, that was it for her. She became quite angry at the world, but mainly at me.
She was abusive. There's no other word but abusive to use, and I will use it since you're not using it. Tell us some of the things she did to you.
Well, every morning we would get up. I would get up at 5:30. Everyone else got up at 6:30. But I would get up. I had to get up at 5:30 to go and get the milk and the bread for our breakfast. And to me, there were certain things that were very surprising. Like I had to go and get the milk from the actual farm. That is, the cows were there, and the milk was recently collected and sold and to me in my cubeta. And I found all this situation very strange. But the strangest and most hurtful thing for me was the way that my aunt treated me. That is, she would bite my fingers if I was not dressed in a certain time. If she said 2 minutes, she meant 2 minutes, not 3, but 2.
Let's talk about the biting for a minute, because you make it sound like it was a little snip on the fingers. What did she do to you?
Well, she actually bit me where the flesh and the bone meet, and it was rather painful.
We'll go to commercial, but we'll be back and talk more about the painful life and the many things he went through. Thank you so much.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McCullough brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcCullough.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McCullife. ChristopherMcCullough.com.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children. After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The World Link program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
Attention business owners. If you feel like your business owns you and want to grow your company and get your life back, then get the Scale Toolkit at scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com. Created by Wall Street Journal bestselling author David Finkel and Priceline.com co-founder Jeff Hoffman, this free collection of 36 videos and PDF tools will help you build a business, not a job. Go to scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com today and learn how to work less by getting your business to produce more.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
If you heard that sound, you probably are eligible for insurance from Navy Mutual, insuring the men and women of the Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard. Here's what one policyholder, retired Navy Commander Thomas Dade, had to say.
Navy Mutual is the best insurance decision I ever made. I wish you had a savings plan available that earned the rates my Navy Mutual insurance has been earning.
Navy Mutual Aid Association, started by military members in 1879, serves active, reserve, and retired military today. Navy Mutual honors our military by providing them affordable life insurance with the features they need without fine print, sales fees, or military service restrictions. Value, integrity, trust, and stability are the cornerstones on which our commitment to you and your loved ones are built. Call Navy Mutual at 1-800-628-6011 or NavyMutual.org for your personal life insurance plan consultation. 1-800-628-6011 or NavyMutual.org. Navy Mutual, insuring those who serve.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome, neighbors, to the Cinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
When we went to commercial, we were talking about Fernando's aunt and how she would bite him to discipline him. But I want to clarify a little bit. She bit him on the fingers till you could actually see the bone. She was not a nice lady. Fernando, you want to talk a little bit more about because this is one of the hurdles that you certainly passed.
Yes. At first I couldn't understand. This was incomprehensible to me. I had never been treated this way. And frankly, I thought my father would come and get me because this was happening. And of course, it didn't, even though I sent him letter after letter. Ultimately, we ended up, my aunt and I, in an understanding. That is, when she was curt to me, I know that I was going to hurt. Curt meant hurt. When she got up in the morning and I was invited to have breakfast with the rest of her family, I knew I was okay. But sometimes she would send me to school and I couldn't write. And my teacher, just a wonderful woman, would ask me, Fernando, what happened to your hand? And I would say, well, it got caught in the this or that. And she would say, don't lie to me. Those are mordidas, bites. And I would start crying. And of course, because I would start crying because I didn't want her to tell my aunt. And my aunt, of course, would bite me again. In any case, this went on for a while and until I had to escape.
Before you escape, let's talk a little bit about the way the board she would use to hit you.
Well, there were many ways that she used to punish me, but I think the most painful were her teeth, because she would bite, like you said, all the way to the bone, and that at 5 o'clock in the morning, Mexico City is very cold, especially in the winter. And I thought I was in hell. Ultimately, my cousins understood that whatever was happening to my aunt was not good for me or anyone, because she seemed to be going crazy. And one of them, Cuca, told me, Fernando, you have to go or she's going to kill you. That's when I decided to go. Of course, pushed by a little event about that involved some ink. When I went to school for the first time that year, the second year, I was with them, I had a bottle of ink, new bottle of ink, and I was very proud of it, and I showed it around. But as kids always will do, or some of them, dumb kids like me, and I spilled it. and spilled it on my uniform. And my aunt had warned me not to do anything to my uniform, brand new uniform, or she would kill me. I thought it was a matter of speaking, but suddenly I realized that, yes, that could be a possibility, and I decided that I was not going back home. I was not going back to her. And that's when I escaped.
How did you escape?
I decided not to go to my aunt's home, but rather take a Calzada de Tlalpan all the way to downtown. And I imagined downtown at night was an exciting place to be, but in the end I found out that downtown Mexico City at night was basically quiet, nothing important happening. But I found a restaurant that was open. I went in there hoping that they would let me sleep there. And I was fed by a wonderful waitress who told me to go in front of the restaurant where there was a 5-story parking lot, and someone there would, especially someone who admired her and wanted to be with her, would give me a job just if I mentioned her name. Ultimately, that's what happened. That's how I escaped.
Okay, so now you're in Mexico City. What happens after that?
It took me about 3 months in that place to gather enough funds to buy a ticket to Tijuana. However, in my mind, Aunt Teresa was always in my mind, and I said, if I take a bus, someone will probably be looking for me to be at the bus station. And so I decided to take a ride instead, and I went to the outskirts of Mexico City and waited for a ride, and I finally caught one in a tomato truck that took me north, but to the wrong north, that is northeast, and I wanted to go northwest. And that is a big part of the story.
So what happens? You're in this truck and thinking you're going to Tijuana.
Yes, and I was stopped in a little town called Jalapa by the sheriff, or el alguacil. And he was waiting there for me because that's the way he got help for his wife at home, who had this little terrenito where she planted this and that, and he wanted someone to help her. So he went to the tomato trucks station, and he knew that he would find someone there. And it so happened that I arrived, and he asked me, are you a relative of the chauffeur? And I said, yeah. And so he asked the chauffeur, and the chauffeur said, no, I was just giving him a ride. Ultimately, I ended up in his jail, which was a little room, no big deal. It was not even a jail. It was a room where they had this, his escritorio, his desk, and a little room where he would lock it, and that would be prison. I worked for him, his family, for 15 days. A very pleasant endeavor, by the way. That was, I got to meet Don Mauro as the chief of police was called, and his wife and his family, 2 kids, and it was very nice. And I thought maybe I should tell them that I can stay here, but of course it would not work. I had to continue my odyssey, and ultimately I was picked up in Ciudad Mante, which is not too far away from Matamoros, on the easternmost, northernmost part of Mexico. And that's when I came. I became friends with a couple of kids who sold newspapers, and I thought that I could stay there for, a couple of months and make money again and save it. But it wasn't to be. The second or third night I was there, it rained, and I had to sleep under the bench. But still, one of their officers, police officers, came to me and said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm enjoying the park. The park is for citizens." And he said, no es para vagos. It's not for vagrants.
We'll be back and talk about the last part of his life. I wish we had more time because his life is very, very interesting.
On the internet, your business's reputation can be unjustly destroyed in an instant. Don't wait for that to happen. Building and marketing your 5-star reputation can increase your business by as much as 19%. Take control of your reputation and have the 5-star reputation you deserve with Reputation Marketing Solutions by DSI Development. Become the go-to company by visiting 5starrepmarketing.com. The number 5starrepmarketing.com.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on Vin Village Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. VinVillage connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
You've heard me talking about Progressive Medical Center. They have helped me feel my best. And Dr. Goli, tell us a little bit about integrative medicine. Why is that such a big deal at Progressive Medical Center, and how can that make me feel better?
Integrative medicine is just good medicine. It's combining the best of traditional medicine, nutritional medicine, natural medicine, and really helping the patient get to the root cause so they can take control of their health and really make an impact to improve not only their energy, their vitality, and just their overall outlook on their health and their life.
I procrastinated for a long time before I finally made an appointment. So why should someone not delay and go ahead and get set up and come see you guys?
Any journey begins with that first step, and that first step means making a decision to recognize that there's something wrong with you. Whether you have fatigue, inappropriate weight gain, not sleeping well, not concentrating, all of these issues, you can get to the root cause.
So many of us here at The Fish have gotten help from Progressive Medical Center. So why don't you find out more from them today? Go to progressivemedicalcenter.com.
This is your life. Live it well.
You take your smartphone almost everywhere you go. Now WSRadio.com can be there too. Search WS Radio in the Play Store for your Android devices or iTunes for Apple and download the WS Radio application. WSRadio.com on your phone and in your ear everywhere you go. Download the WS Radio application. Do it now. It's very easy. WSRadio.com.
Attention business owners. Does it feel like your business owns you? See if you qualify for a free 90-minute business coaching session to to help you build a business, not a job. During this free 90-minute strategic consultation, one of our senior coaches will help you map out the best way to grow your company and get your life back. To learn more, go to MauiMasterminds.com/scale now. That's MauiMasterminds.com/scale now.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome, neighbors, to Vecinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
You're listening to WSRadio.com, the worldwide leader in Internet talk. When we went to commercial, we were talking to Fernando about his experience in the Matamoros prison. We're just going to talk a little bit about that before we move on. But I think it's important to share that this child of 12 had a very traumatic experience.
Yes, when I arrived in Matamoros, I immediately made two good friends in the newspaper sellers, these kids, and they taught me how to sell newspapers too and all that. But at night, they were living with someone who allowed them to stay with them, but not me. He couldn't take another one. So I had to stay somewhere, and the public park was the place I stayed. But unfortunately, there was a police officer who didn't think I should be there and who decided to send me to jail. And that's when for 15 days, I had the most horrible experience of my life. Once I think I already talked, didn't I, about what happened to me there?
No, you haven't talked about it.
Oh boy, it is very unfortunate, but jail is not for children. Children should be put somewhere else. And unfortunately, at that time, no one talked about that. So they put me in jail, and it was a very long rectangle. There was no ceiling, nothing. And the refuse was left there for a whole week before it was picked up. And I'm talking about everything. And it was horrible because the flies would come and visit, and they were all over us and they would get into our noses, our eyes, our mouths, and everything. But in any case, I was not happy there, as no one was, but it was a horrible experience. And then one day I learned through one of the other children there that someone was coming for me. And I said, why? What have I done? And they said, well, it has nothing to do with you. It just has to do with the fact that they want to damage you. And for 2 days, I tried to escape being there, and I was hiding where the refuge was. And ultimately, the day came. It was ironic. It was Christmas Day, and they came after me. And I was running all around, but they came after me and got me. I went in, and I was raped not only by the boss, one of the 5 bosses in that place. They had their own cells, and I was raped by him and all his achichincles, as they call them over there, associates. In any case, I was left among the refuse, and I was helped by an old man and a man who was gay, who said, this place is not for children. And it was very painful. It's a very painful memory.
And I'm not going to ask you to share any more of it. Excuse me. Because of time, our limited time, let's talk a little bit about you in Tijuana and your music in Tijuana. How did you do that?
See, now, that's a different experience. It's a wonderful experience because it was a period when things started to change for Tijuana, and especially for Tijuana musicians. We were disjointed. No one knew any of the other guys, and they all came together to play in Revolucion. And suddenly, the kids in Southern California found the scene on Revolucion rather attractive. And some of the best groups were playing there. And one of them was led by someone who became very famous in this world, Carlos Santana. And there was one place in particular, it was called the Convoy Club. And the Convoy Club had this man, not Jim Perry, I'm sorry. I don't remember his last name, but his first name was Gene. And he was one hell of a organist and a pianist, and he would play magic, and ultimately he is the one who was the ultimate education for people like Javier Batis, one of the greatest in Tijuana, and Carlos Santana, the greatest in Tijuana. And I followed them. I became a drummer because of them. And it was the greatest experience to live at that time, to live there in those times.
We have less than 2 minutes left, but I'm going to ask Denise, because that certainly has a big influence, to talk about. She's going over to Tijuana to dance, like thousands of girls were doing in those days. Do you want to talk a little bit about meeting this man?
Well, I've always been fat, and I discovered Mexican men who like fat women. So that was pretty exciting. And I was in beauty school, and we all went to Tijuana. I had no idea what that was like. It was pretty exciting. You could drink at 18, and we drank and partied our brains out. And he was the drummer of one of the bands, and we had a very bad experience. He asked me what time it was, and I said, "What do I look like, Big Ben?" And he said, "What you need is a choo-chine boy to put you around." And so I decided I'd get one. And the next thing I knew, I was pregnant, and the next thing I knew, I was married, and we lived in Tijuana for about 2 years until driving to La Jolla got to be too much for me.
We're going to have to end our program, but I do want to mention the name of the book one more time, The Color of Eden. It is on Amazon. Well worth reading, especially, I had said for high school kids, it might be a little bit too graphic for high school, but I certainly recommend it for any college class, and to learn more about this border that exists with the fence, but reality is it does not exist. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
A podcast or radio show on WS Radio is a great way to create content marketing. Turn prospects into customers into raving fans. Contact Wade at WSRadio.com or call 866-WS-RADIO.
Kenja Dixon was crowned the #1 sales executive through hard work, deep thinking, and the revelation of universal talk laws. He now wants to share these lessons with you. Universal talk laws are what you need to know and use in business and at home to have successful and effective conversations. Kenja Dixon shares his wisdom, action plans, and wealth. Each book comes with a chance to win $10,000. Find Universal Talk Laws at KenjaDixon.com. On the internet, your business's reputation can be unjustly destroyed in an instant. Don't wait for that to happen. Building and marketing your 5-star reputation can increase your business by as much as 19%. Take control of your reputation and have the 5-star reputation you deserve with Reputation Marketing Solutions by DSI Development. Become the go-to company by visiting 5starrepmarketing.com. The number 5starrepmarketing.com.
Hi, Scale listener. This is David Finkel, co-host with Jeff Hoffman of Scale Your Business. I wanted to let you know that our newest book, Scale, was just released and to encourage you to get your copy. The book will give you 7 proven principles to grow your business and get your life back. If you've ever wanted to grow your business, but held yourself back from fear that it would take over your life, then we urge you to get your copy of Scale today. It'll give you a proven roadmap for rapidly growing your business while also gaining more personal freedom. Scale will help you work less by getting your business to produce more. Scale is for every entrepreneur who ever wondered if they really own their business or if their business owns them. Get your copy online or at your local bookseller. For more information, visit us online at scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com. That's scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com.
Controversy and conversation to upset the status quo. A no-holds-barred exploration and obliteration of the limits of possibility. Join me, Steve Olsher, and my rambunctious crew on Reinvention Radio, where each week we scour the planet to bring you the world's foremost social, business, political, technology, and scientific disruptors who challenge the accepted and forge daring, cutting-edge paths. That's Reinvention Radio, where normal comes to die and mediocrity meets its final demise.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, VinVillage.com, where wine lovers connect. Be sure to tune in weekly to Vin Village Radio for exclusive, in-depth interviews with the who's who in wine and food.